I have some odds and ends of yarn left over from a project I recently finished, and some of them I already wound up, and some of them I just kind of casually wound up, and some of them are not wound up at all. And so I thought I'd tidy that up, but what I was going to do was use this opportunity to say a little bit about small quantities of yarn and how to handle them. Now, people use clothespins for wrapping yarn around to when they're going to do a grafghan and they want to have bits of it and move the different colors from here to there and there to here. And they also wrap samples of yarn around this so they can lay them next to each other and pick colors and things like that. But I've seen some people cutting up the multicolored, what am I trying to say? Cakes. That's what I'm trying to say. The multicolored cakes of yarn at the beginning of a project so they can control which colors come next. And some of those balls look really, really tiny. And so I'm not sure what they're doing with them. Maybe they are just making a little thing. Now, see, this is how I unwind the yarn from the outside. So like I wind up with some of them that are a fairly good size yet, and still hold some structure. But this is the thing, when you're using the yarn from the inside and you're starting a project, this is the yarn you're getting. And you're trying to do those little difficult to manage center stitches with yarn that's all wonky and wanting to separate because it's got bends in it. And so it just doesn't work really well, I think. That's one of the reasons I unwind from the outside. But to straighten these out, what I do is I wind them a particular way. And I didn't learn this from knitting or crochet. I learned this from my father showing me how to wind up rope or extension cords so that it doesn't get all kinked up and trip you when you try to use it next time. So what I do is I start out with just holding it and wrapping it around my hand. And depending how much yarn I have, how many times I wrap it before I start doing anything else. But eventually, I'll start crossing the yarn. Seem to have, there we go, seem to have a little tangle. What I'll do is I'll start crossing the yarn. And I'm just going to start earlier than I normally would so that I can show it. And making a figure 8. And just continuing with the figure 8 over and over again and traveling with it. So that's how I wind up with something that looks like this one right here. You can see the figure 8. And then what I'll do is I'll take the end and pull it through the loops and just tie it around, and that keeps it from unraveling. So I can, handle these pretty roughly, and I'm not going to have unraveled pile of yarn in my box or bag or basket or whatever. So yeah, that's my contribution to this. And what I think, my opinion, what happens, actually it's not just an opinion, my observation of what happens is that if you do this, the yarn loses that kinky characteristic that it acquired by being wound up inside the skein that you got commercially. Now, of course, if you have larger amounts of yarn, you can kind of go right over the ends. And then what I'll do is, since I have a crochet hook handy, I'll just pull the end under a couple of strands of yarn and then back the other way, and that's not going to unwind either. And the last resort is if you're going to take apart an entire project and have an entire large skein of yarn, you can use the commonly available household device to wrap around it and get a nice thing. And then what I did with this one was I went through the middle a couple times and around to secure the whole thing because I wasn't planning on using it right away. So that's what I have here and what I'm going to be doing. One other thing I wanted to do was show the project that these came off of. So here it is. This is the Squircle by Helen Shrimpton. What you're seeing here is half of it. It's folded, and there's another big square and 4 little squares, and another 4 little squares on that side, if you can get the idea. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. Have fun.